What's up, guys? It's Two Bags. So I just got done with lessons today. I'm just chilling here at the school, and I have some thoughts about coaching and development and stuff that I want to get off my chest. So I've been doing lessons here for, I think a couple of years now. I'm a former professional. My dad was a college coach. He still is a college coach. He's been doing it for 30 plus years. And I've had a lot of conversations with him about this. I also have a lot of really smart friends that have kind of put things in perspective for me when it comes to this kind of stuff. But it seems like, especially in hitting, like the way that we teach mindset, the way that we teach mechanics, there's just so much information, and training is so prevalent now, whereas kind of in the golden age, or some people might call it the steroid era, where just 20, 30 years ago, where people were hitting bombs and swings looked a little bit different, but also like the training was just different. Like there wasn't a lot of people doing lessons or camps to the degree that they do now. I mean, just now in the Fox Valley, and you can't go a couple miles without seeing a training facility, somewhere. So I just kind of wanted to share my thoughts on how we approach that now. And when I say we, I'm just talking about coaches. So that could be anybody, but I think a lot of times coaches get it mixed up where their mindset in coaching, especially in hitting, is kind of like a don't do this mindset. Like, if you do this, this will mess up your swing. So common ones are like, don't have a hitch, right? Don't tip your bat forward. Don't arm bar, don't pull your lead arm across your chest when you load. Don't step in, don't step out. Don't squish the bug. There's so much random information out there. And there's a lot of don'ts. There's a lot of things that we tell kids not to do, instead of looking at their athletic profile and how they move and trying to enhance that. I think a lot of the best hitters of all time have super unorthodox styles, and they have moves that they make that if they went into a hitting facility nowadays, or most hitting facilities, half those moves would be coached out of them when they're 10 years old. I think our job as coaches is not to necessarily tell kids what not to do and try to fix them. Our job is more so to enhance what they already have and make it as best as possible. And so I've talked about this a lot in previous videos, but I feel like when I see a kid come in and he's got a tip in his swing, he's like, or a hitch, where he's kind of like tipping it a lot. And I don't really like to coach that out of them. I like to teach them how to time that up, because a lot of times with the hitch, the biggest issue kids have is they're late, or their barrel just doesn't get out front on time. I like to teach kids how to do that. Like, how do you load earlier? How do you flow with the pitcher? What are some strategies that we can use to get you on time with the way that you like to move, instead of trying to change their entire movement pattern, And I really do think this applies to any sport. I was just talking to one of my best friends the other day. We just had one of those late night conversations on the porch talking about sports, because we play pickup basketball all the time. And he's really, really solid. But the thing is like, he has a very unorthodox style. Like, when I play him, I mean, to be honest, and he would admit this, like, I'm a little taller, more athletic, like I'm a little more traditional, like basketball, build, I guess, compared to him. And my style is pretty just normal, like I try to, get space. I'm a decent shooter. But he like plays super, super slow. He likes to change direction. He does like a lot of like hook shots and stuff in the paint, fadeaways and just weird stuff. Try to keep people off balance, but it just works for him. It just works for like his body type and his style, and he totally like scores a lot of buckets off of me. So that's a great example, is like, he found out what his limitations and his strengths were as a basketball player, and just found a style that works for him. Instead of just thinking about, okay, what are the general rules? Like, how am I supposed to do this? How am I supposed to dribble? How am I supposed to shoot? Or how am I not supposed to shoot? Like, we talked about how a lot of coaches coach with the don't do this kind of mindset. He just found out, even though I'm unorthodox with my style, how can I succeed? That's how we have to approach it. So when it comes to hitting, I think that's the way that it needs to be. Are there certain principles that every hitter should kind of abide by? I think so. I mean, I think everyone should get to a decent launch position where their feet are wider than their shoulders. I think they should be in athletic stance. That just means like you're ready to go, like your hips are back, your knees are bent, like you're ready to do something athletic. But I don't think how we get there has to be cookie cutter. I don't think we should tell kids not to do things in their swing. I think we should teach them how to make their swing as optimal as possible. And that looks different for every kid, right? Like we have to say it in a different way for every kid too, because every single client that comes in here has a different way of understanding things, has a different vocabulary, like, and also got to keep in mind with youth coaching, you're probably working with kids from like 6 years old to 20 years old at times. So those are two entirely different, like, walks of life, right? Like a 6-year-old is going to interpret things a lot different than a freshman in college, right? So it's just, we need to look at it like, how do we optimize what they have currently? How do we meet a player where they're at? That's the best way to go about it, in my opinion. I just think so many coaches don't do that. It's like every lesson is, oh, you did this wrong, don't do that, fix that, fix that, fix that, right? Instead of trying to fix a swing, how can we build upon it? That's the mindset. And so I think, with your own training too, that's how you need to think about it. Stop having such a negative mindset around it. Because the moment you start to say, don't do this, fix this, you are automatically kind of assuming that there's something wrong. Like you're doing something wrong. And it's kind of a negative feedback loop that happens when a coach constantly tries to fix things and tell a player what they're doing wrong rather than just building on what they have, right? And I think everyone would agree that hitting is 60 to 70% mental. I didn't mean to make that joke there. It's just a lot of set of catching camp and the kids are doing the 6-7 thing the whole time. So maybe subconsciously that's why that was in my mind. But yeah, hitting is mostly mental. So if a player can stay confident and feel good about what they're doing, it's going to help them so much more than fixing their mechanics. And so if you can phrase things in a way that are telling a hitter that we're just building off of what we already have and we're just improving what we already have rather than saying what you have is wrong and we need to fix it, I think it takes a much more positive attack on what we're trying to do with hitting lessons, which is just get them better and get them results. And hitting lessons, I'm just trying to make my players have a great time hitting, do better in games, and just grow in general as a person and as a hitter, obviously, but like just in general, And so when we have more of a positive approach where we're just adding things instead of subtracting things, it'll help a ton, I think. And it just fixes the mental aspect because nowadays I just feel like hitters, especially in kids that play baseball and softball and they hit, things are already tough enough. Like the competition is insane. Like everyone is more athletic, everyone trains more, everyone lifts and does sprints, whatever. And everyone has just elite training compared to what it used to be. Social media makes things tough as well. You look, if you're a kid, you're 13 years old, let's say, you look on Instagram and you see another 13-year-old throwing 90 miles an hour. It's like, okay, I'm 13 years old. That's very difficult, and it's really hard not to get into that comparison mode. And so if we're just building upon the skills that a player has, they literally feel like they're being built up. That's the feeling a player needs to have because they're already going through so much like negative stuff in their life, with the social media, with everyone just being so competitive in their sport. And, there's just a lot going on at that age and just at the youth level in general. And so I think the building up mindset, and some examples of how we can apply that is like, I talked about having a hitch in your swing or the arm bar or whatever, but let's say a kid likes to start really close with their feet so they kind of like stand up in their stance. Like there's a lot of hitters that like Mike Trout does that, for example. But if a kid likes to do that, instead of just saying, hey, that's going to make you move forward way too much. It's going to mess up all this stuff. We need to fix that. We should think, okay, how can I give this kid a load that's going to make that stance optimal for them? Because they like to stand that way. That's how they like to move. What type of load is going to help them do that? I think from a very close together stance, it's easier to do like a leg kick, kind of like Trout or Christian Yelich, where you can balance easier. It's kind of like pitching. Like your feet are so close together, you can kind of leg kick and like hover for a little bit and then stride out. It helps you be a little bit more under control with that forward move, because if you start with your feet together, obviously you have to go forward. You can't just swing from there. So having a little like hover leg kick thing can be really helpful from that kind of stance. The other part of it too is I just fundamentally believe, like to my core, that there is no right way to hit. If you watch the MLB playoffs right now, like you'll see examples of all different kinds of hitting styles. See Ohtani go no stride and like crazy, like arm bar, his hands go really high and away from his head. You'll see a guy like Kike Hernandez like step out, like he steps out in his stride. He like steps in the bucket, just like most coaches would say that's a bad thing. If they saw a 10-year-old kid doing that, they'd be like, stop it, don't do that. It's going to mess up your swing, right? And that's where that negative feedback loop comes in. That's kind of what I'm talking about. There's just so many different ways to hit. Like there's simple ways, like there's complicated ways. There's a guy I played against. His name's Matt Shaw. He was playing for the Cubs. They just got eliminated by the Brewers, but he has a crazy forward move. Like he moves forward a ton. There's a lot of like head movement, but he also creates a ton of pop in that kind of swing. So is that right or wrong? Well, he's in the MLB. He's a Division I baseball player, and he balled out. So it's like there is no right or wrong. There isn't. Like on the same team, there's like Nico Horner, who barely even moves in his thing. He's just like super simple. Like everything's simple. He just kind of shoots it the other way a lot. That works for him. So that's the other thing we have to keep in mind too, is that what we assume as coaches a lot of times is what is like a fundamental truth about hitting that everyone kind of knows or should apply to every hitter isn't a fundamental truth. Like there's always an exception to the rule that you can find at any high level, form of baseball or softball. Like, and that just is a fact. Like people who say don't have a hitch in your swing, well, I can name probably 20 hitters that have a hitch in their swing. One of them being Barry Bonds, who's the greatest hitter of all time. Don't do an armbar. Well, I just did a YouTube short video on that. It's like there's plenty of examples of baseball, softball players who do that. Don't move your head a ton in your load. Well, I just named someone who does that. Don't step out, step in the bucket. Kike Hernandez does that. Don't step in. Will Clark did that. Stanton does that. Like, there's just an example of everything that's supposed to be wrong in a swing that happens in a game. Don't swing up. Freddie Freeman swings up. He has a super vertical bat angle when it comes to the zone, and then he goes straight up after he hits it. But it works for him. I mean, he's really tall. His arms are insanely long. So when he gets a low pitch, he has to kind of swing up just to get to that pitch, and it works for him. He's one of the best hitters in the world, So there's always an exception to the rule. There aren't really rules. It's just all it is this. This is the system that we have here at the school, is like kid comes in, we assess how they move. So sometimes we'll do video. Sometimes, in my hitting lessons, I really like to do the blast motion thing. So you put it on the end of the knob of the bat, and it kind of gives us like a little profile of how their bat path is moving. It also tells us what their like angles are, like their vertical bat angle, like which kind of indicates like what is their posture looking like and how are they moving through the strike zone. So we kind of assess how they move first, and we kind of ask them a bunch of questions about their, maybe injury history, or, what sports do they play? Are they right-handed, left-handed? Which eye is dominant? We try to figure these kinds of things out, because then we can kind of get a really good understanding of how they move. So then we can figure out how can we build off that and make the way that they're built, the way that they move, optimal. How can we improve that? Instead of trying to necessarily just give them rules that they have to follow, So that's the way that I love to approach it. And we can apply that, like I said, to any sport. any aspect of the game, I think it's most relevant in hitting, just because some of the instruction that I see in hitting on social media, on YouTube, or just in my experience, like just around the game, I'm pretty young, but still have a decent amount of experience just seeing different coaches, different programs and stuff like that. It seems like a lot of the instruction is very like, okay, you did this, this is wrong, need to fix this, and that is just the wrong approach, I think. So, but it gets results too. Like, and kids feel like they're a part of it. They feel like they're an individual too. They feel like they're not just like getting constrained and having to follow rules. And they feel like very like taken care of too, I feel like. And that's the biggest thing in lessons is you have to have that trust and confidence in your coach that what they're teaching you is going to get you to where you need to go. Whatever your goal is. Maybe your goal is to hit a ball in a game for the first time. Like some of my clients are 7, 8 years old. Their goal is to not jump out of the way and be scared. So we have to build up that confidence. And that's like, that's where a hitting coach kind of becomes a psychologist to some degree, Then some of my clients are in college, and then they just want to know, how can I hit a 92 mile an hour sinker? It's like, that's a whole different thing, but it's also like the methods that I give them, I'm just trying to build off of what they're good at, and they have to have that confidence in me that I can teach them how to do that, and they have to feel comfortable in that environment and feel confident in my knowledge and skill set, my ability to understand their swing, that it'll get them to that goal. And so the bottom line is, this isn't me trying to dunk on any other coaches or anything like that. Like, I have made these mistakes too. I'm just trying to spread awareness to this, because I just feel like this is a problem, not just with coaching, but just in the culture of baseball and softball, specifically travel baseball and softball right now, is that the coaching style and the way that we understand how to develop players is it's like a negative feedback loop instead of like building people up, And I'm not advocating for coaches to be like, oh, good job constantly, and just tell kids that they're great when they're not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying let's make it more, individualized and not have rules when it comes to coaching. And, let's try to customize our hitters. Like, everything that we know about hitting that we think is just a fundamental truth, we have to question it and challenge it constantly. And you should also be studying film. You should be watching the game. You should be watching live games. Like, you should be watching high school games, college games, travel games. You should be watching on TV, because you will find like really good hitters that are always exceptions to the rules that you think are true. And so basically that's my whole philosophy, is I just think we need to change our mindset as a collective, like as a culture in baseball and softball. It's a culture thing. It can't be so much like so negative, like you're swinging this way, therefore you need to fix everything, because then I think we'll really start to see players learn faster and improve faster. I really think back in the day, when I say back in the day, I was talking about kind of like my golden era of hitting, which is like the 90s, early 2000s. I really like a lot of the swings from there. And I think a lot of the ways that they moved feel a lot more natural to me. Just with the loads, like with the barrel movements, and like kind of the way that they're so bottom hand dominant with their swings, where like you can see the bottom arm, like the lead arm is like taking over. To me, those are like really good looking swings and powerful swings. I know a lot of those guys were on roids, but like their swings were awesome, and I think that's gotten lost a little bit. I think what we're seeing now is like pitching is getting better, of course. But at the same time, the reason we're also seeing batting averages go down across all levels is because instruction is a little bit different. It's more prevalent, so there's instruction everywhere. I just think the information is getting passed around in kind of a toxic way, where it's like we're creating all these weird rules that aren't even rules, instead of just letting hitters move the way that they're meant to move, the way that they're built to move. Like, I can't teach a kid to hit the way that I hit. It worked really well for me, but it's not going to work really well for someone who has different like dimensions, like a different height, different limb lengths, different, you know, just different advantages and disadvantages. Injury history matters too, and flexibility matters, and strength in certain areas of your body matters. And like, if you're a right-handed hitter who's like super right side dominant, you have a different swing than someone who's like more left side dominant, or you're more balanced, right? Like ideally, I think you want to be pretty balanced. Like you don't want to be super strong on one side; it can cause some problems. But everyone is built different. Essentially, is what I'm saying. And so, because of that, that's why we need to change our whole mindset on this. So, if you guys like this kind of content, let me know. This is just me rambling, essentially. Like, I have some really strong opinions on this kind of stuff because I've just seen so much ball, and I've worked with so many different players, and I feel like I'm not even scratching the surface, but it just, I have so much to say. Like, I have a lot of opinions on this kind of stuff. We'll get more into it with the podcast, but if you guys like this content, let me know. If you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe to it. It really helps us out so we can reach more people, kind of boost the algorithm a little bit. That's the whole goal with this too, guys, is with the YouTube, we're trying to reach as many people as possible. So that's why we include the funny stuff like the skits. That's also why we include the really heavy instructional stuff, and the podcast is like, I just want to spread the culture of baseball and softball. And I really like where this is headed with like what we teach in here. And I just want to share it with more people because I really think it will, if more people can get reached by this kind of stuff, it will help the baseball culture and softball culture. Like we talked about how the culture is a little bit kind of like a weird negative feedback loop right now. So I feel like, you guys engaging with this content, subscribing, liking, and just listening, it's really, really helpful. So I appreciate it because I think this will help like just everybody in general with what we're doing. So, but yeah, let me know. You guys can comment. You guys can DM us on Instagram, Facebook. All of our ats are the school B-ball and S-ball academy. So it's just like the school baseball and softball academy, but instead of the base and the soft, it's just B and S. Didn't mean to say BS there, but it's late. Just got done with lessons. So thank you guys. We got a podcast coming out on Thursday this week. So go check that out as well. I think when I'm releasing this video, it should be Friday. So it should be already out by the time you guys get to hear this video. So check out the podcast. We got a bunch of new skits too. And the shorts. And like, if you click on our channel and you go to the shorts area, there's like some really funny stuff in there that it's also instructional too, but it's just really entertaining. So I'm excited about all that stuff. So thanks guys, and we'll see you next time.